What you are about to hear is a story I was never supposed to find. It didn't come from a news report or a police file. It came to me in fragments, corrupted audio logs, panic chat messages, and a single, terrifying testimony from a freelance digital worker who has since vanished. We've all felt it, haven't we? That creeping sense of urban isolation one. The feeling that even though you're surrounded by millions, you're completely alone, staring into a screen in the dead of night. We all do the mindless work. We click the boxes, we transcribe the audio, we fill out the endless, low-paying online surveys for data collection services too. We sell tiny pieces of our lives for fractions of a cent, believing we're the ones exploiting the system. But what if, one night, the system decided to exploit you back? The woman in this story, who we will call Kendra, was just like us three, a cog in the machine. But she received an invitation, an ad that promised to help shape tomorrow for her. She thought it was spam. She thought she was gaming it for 50 cents. She didn't realize that the survey wasn't just asking questions. It was using her answers to force localized reality shifts 5. This isn't just a story about a haunted app or a computer virus. It's a warning. It's about the terrifying premise that our collective will, our shared, hidden thoughts, could become a weapon 6. It's about what happens when a button on a screen can collapse a power grid, trigger a deep freeze, or unleash a flood on a city thousands of miles away 7. What you are about to hear is what happens when you click yes. And you need to listen closely, because the scary part isn't that this happened to her. It's that the invitation is still out there. If you're not prepared for what's coming, you will be the next victim. Subscribe now, so you're not caught off guard when it shows up on your screen 8. This is her story, in her own words. It's called, I work filling out online surveys. I shouldn't have clicked yes. It was 2 in the morning, which is my 9 to 5. My world was the blue glow of a laptop screen, the quiet hum of the refrigerator, and the endless scroll of human garbage. They call it digital content moderation. I call it getting paid pennies to be the janitor of the internet. 10 hours a day, I'd sit in my apartment on the 24th floor, overlooking the sleeping city of Chicago, and I'd click boxes. Hate speech. Click. Conspiracy theory. Click. A video of a guy eating light bulbs. Click, click, click. You do it long enough, you stop seeing people. You just see data points, little bursts of misery you have to categorize for a machine. It drains the color out of you, leaves you feeling as gray as the concrete walls of my building. My only real company was Spots, my black cat. She was a holdover from my grandma, a warm, living thing in my sterile, digital world. That night, she was curled in the corner of my desk, a furry black hole judging my life choices with every silent blink. I was in the zone, that numb, hypnotic state where you can classify 100 blurry images of traffic lights without a single thought. It's a grind, but it pays the bills. Barely. That's when it popped up, not on my work queue, but as a separate, flashy banner ad that somehow bypassed my blocker. Big, bold, white letters against a stark black background. Help shape tomorrow. Below it, a loading bar and a promise of 50 cents. 50 cents was 10 minutes of transcribing garbled audio. This was a gift. I saw it not as some grand invitation, but as another piece of corporate spam, another company desperate for my data, another sucker. I clicked it. The screen went black, then reloaded to a simple, clean interface. No logos, no branding, just 2 words floating in the center of the page. Dark or light, that was it. No context, no explanation. A survey, I figured. A dumb, pointless A/B test to see what word people clicked on more. Probably for a new brand of artisanal light bulbs or a goth clothing line. I shrugged and moved my cursor. I've been staring at a bright screen for 10 hours. My eyes burned. Dark sounded good. I clicked it, and the world ended. Not with a bang, but with a click. The low, constant hum of the refrigerator just stopped. My laptop screen went black. The little green power light on my monitor blinked out. The whole apartment, the whole building, plunged into an absolute, suffocating darkness. It wasn't just a power outage. It was like someone had flipped a switch on reality itself. The silence was the worst part. It was heavy wrong. The familiar sounds of the city outside, the distant sirens, the rumble of the L train were gone. All I could hear was my own ragged breathing and the frantic thumping of my heart. Spots stirred on the desk. She let out a low, confused trill, not a meow of annoyance, but a sound of pure bewilderment. A sound I had never heard her make before. I froze, every nerve in my body screaming. My hand trembled as I reached for my phone. It screened the only thing that still worked. It's scary how quickly your world can just turn off. You never think it'll happen to you, until it does. You just sit there, helpless in the dark, completely unprepared. People who think they're safe are the first ones to get caught off guard. If you're not ready for the unexpected, you're already a victim. If you're still not subscribing, you should probably comment why you think you're the exception. I fumbled with my phone, my fingers slipping on the glass. As I finally got a grip, the survey page on its screen refreshed, blinding me for a second. The previous choice was gone. In its place, 2 new words waited for my answer. Heat or cold? My thumb hovered over the screen, my knuckles white. This was insane. Power outages happen, especially in old Chicago high-rises. But the timing, it was too perfect. Coincidence, I told myself. Just a freak coincidence. My building's grid, probably blew a fuse the exact second I clicked the stupid button. It had to be. Still, I couldn't shake the thick, chilling dread that was coiling in my gut. The silence was a living thing, and it was watching me. The survey on my phone was the only light, the only thing happening in my world, and it was waiting for an answer. Heat or cold? Screw this. I muttered, my voice sounding small and thin in the oppressive quiet. I was annoyed at the power outage, at the creepy survey, and my own pounding heart. I jabbed my thumb at the screen, choosing cold out of pure spite. I lived on the 24th floor. It was already stuffy. A little cold couldn't hurt. The effect was instantaneous and violent. A deafening roar erupted from the vents in my apartment as the building's entire HVAC system kicked on at once, sounding like a jet engine preparing for takeoff. It wasn't the gentle hum of the AC. This was a mechanical shriek of something being pushed far beyond its limits. An Arctic blast of air, impossibly cold, shot through the vents. It was so frigid I could see my own breath fogging in front of my face. Goosebumps erupted across my arms, and my teeth began to chatter uncontrollably. Spots, who had been frozen on the desk, leaped to the floor and scrambled under the couch. Her fur puffed out 3 times its normal size too. The apartment was still dark, but now it was also freezing, the temperature dropping with an unnatural speed. A strange, sterile smell filled the air, like cold metal, or the inside of an old, unplugged freezer 3333. My blood ran cold for a reason that had nothing to do with the temperature. This wasn't a coincidence. This wasn't a faulty HVAC unit for. Something was causing this, and I was holding it in my hand. I stared at the phone, my mind refusing to connect the dots my senses were screaming at me. This is not real. This is not happening. Then, new text appeared on the screen, and my heart stopped dead in my chest. It wasn't a choice. It was a sentence, written in the same simple, white font. Spot seems to feel the cold, Kendra. I dropped the phone. It hit the floor with a clatter, the screen thankfully not cracking. For a full minute, I didn't breathe. I couldn't move. My cat's name. My name. How? How could it know our names? My mind raced, trying to find a logical anchor in a sea of terror. Data scraping. It had to be. My phone's microphone was always listening. My digital footprint was a mile wide. They scraped my social media, saw pictures of my cat, found my name in some data breach. It was a trick 5. A deeply unsettling, terrifyingly personal, an invasive trick, but a trick nonetheless. It was the only explanation that didn't involve me losing my mind. Shaking, I picked the phone back up. I had to close it. I had to end this. but my finger wouldn't move. I had to see what was next. It was like watching a car crash in slow motion. You know you should look away, but you just can't. The text about me and spots faded away, replaced by the survey's next terrifying question. The stakes were no longer about simple comfort. The words on the screen promised something far worse, a disaster on a scale I couldn't comprehend. Flood or fire? My thumb trembled over the two words glowing on the screen. Flood. Fire. This was different. This wasn't about my comfort, about being in the dark or feeling a chill. These were words for disasters, for news reports and tragedies that happened to other people in other places. This couldn't be real. It was a psychological test, that's all. Some sick, twisted market research to see what kind of disasters people feared most. They were just words. They had no real power. I clung to that thought like a life raft. I'm in a concrete tower in the middle of America. A flood? A fire was a real, immediate threat. A fire could gut this entire building. A flood, though, a flood was an impossibility. We were hundreds of miles from the nearest ocean. The lake was a mile away, but it couldn't cause a biblical deluge. It was the safer, more absurd option. It was a vote for the impossible, a way to call the survey's bluff. My heart hammered against my ribs as I made my choice, pressing my thumb firmly onto the word flood. For a moment, nothing happened. The frigid air still pumped from the vents. The apartment was still a pitch-black icebox. I let out a shaky breath, a plume of white vapor clouding in front of my face. See? Nothing. It was just a stupid, creepy app. I felt a wave of relief, so powerful it almost made me laugh. I had been panicking over nothing, letting a power outage and an overactive AC unit get to me. The names were just a lucky guess, a data scrape. It was all a coincidence. Then my phone buzzed. It wasn't the survey. It was a text message. My blood turned to ice when I saw the name on the screen. J-Man, Jerome. My best friend since high school. He'd moved out to Los Angeles a few years ago to work for some tech startup, chasing the sunshine and a six-figure salary. We didn't talk every day, but we were close. He was my rock. A text from him at this hour was rare. My fingers shook as I tapped the notification. The message wasn't a single text. It was a frantic flood of blue bubbles, all sent in the span of 30 seconds. J-Man, Kino. Holy ST. J-Man. Something is happening. J-Man. The water. J-Man. It's not an earthquake. It just came out of nowhere. The sirens are going off. I can see it from my window. The whole street is gone. My vision swam. I read the messages again, and then a third time, the words blurring together. The water. It just came out of nowhere. No, it couldn't be. It was a prank. It had to be a prank. But Jerome didn't prank. Not like this. It's a terrifying thing to realize a nightmare is real. It's even more terrifying to realize you caused it. That one careless choice you made, thinking you were safe and disconnected, has reached across a continent to drown someone you love. You tell yourself it's not your fault, but that's a lie, isn't it? Some dangers you invite into your own home, and you don't even realize the door you've opened until it's too late. Are you sure you haven't opened a door you can't close? If you're not subscribed, you're betting that you're immune to consequences. Let me know in the comments how that usually works out. I try to type a response, but my fingers were numb and useless. Are you okay? Where are you? Call me. Nothing would send. The top of my phone screen read, no service. Of course. The survey worked just fine, but I couldn't call for help. I couldn't even find out if my best friend was alive. A wave of nausea washed over me, hot and acidic. I had done this. I had clicked a button, and I had sent a flood to Los Angeles. As that horrific reality settled into my bones, the survey on my phone refreshed again, stealing my attention, demanding my participation. And this time, it had a new, horrifying feature. A 10-second countdown timer was already ticking down next to the next impossible choice. Sink or swim. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, The numbers on the screen were like a bomb counting down. My mind went blank with sheer panic. This wasn't a choice. It was a threat. A gun in my head. What did it even mean? Sink or swim? Was it about Jerome? Was I deciding his fate? Right here, from 2,000 miles away? Was I supposed to let him drown or give him a chance to live? The cruelty of it was staggering. The countdown created a frantic, overwhelming urgency, giving me no time for rational thought, only instinct one. My breath hitched in my throat. My thumb, slick with sweat, hovered over the screen. 4, 3. I couldn't choose sink. I couldn't. It felt like signing a death warrant. Swim. It had to be swim. It was a vote for survival, a desperate prayer sent into the digital void. 2. I slammed my thumb on his swim just as the counter hit 1. The screen flashed, accepting my answer. I collapsed back against the wall, gasping for air, the phone clutched in my hand like a talisman. For a second, there was only the sound of my own ragged breathing in the freezing, dark apartment. Then I heard it. It came from down the hall, near my bathroom. A wet, dragging noise 222. It was slow, heavy, and sickeningly organic. It sounded exactly like something enormous and waterlogged climbing out of a bathtub, its weight scraping against the porcelain 333. Spots, who was still hiding under the couch, let out a sharp, panicked yowl for. I froze, every muscle in my body locked tight. My mind couldn't create an image for that sound, and the not knowing was 1,000 times worse than any monster I could imagine. The sound was the physical manifestation of my choice, the sound of reality resealing itself around my panicked decision 5. I scrambled backward, away from the hallway, my eyes wide in the gloom. The apartment didn't feel right. It was still unnaturally cold, and the metallic freezer smell was stronger now, a constant reminder that the laws of physics had been broken in here. 6666. My phone screen flickered, drawing my terrified gaze. For a split second, a line of green, technical-looking text flashed across the screen, too fast to read properly. But I caught fragments. Chire_protocol, query_response_swim, and then, most terrifyingly, test 3, 41% success. Test. Success? The idea that this was a test, an experiment designed to succeed, was a horror far beyond a simple haunting or a glitch 7. It meant there was an intelligence behind this, a purpose, and I was their lab rat. My blood ran cold. Before I could even begin to process the implications, the screen wiped itself clean. The final, most insane question yet appeared. The countdown was already on. Aliens or demons? 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. My mind fractured. The words on the screen made no sense. Aliens. Demons. It was the choice of a madman, a question from a nightmare. How do you choose between two different flavors of the apocalypse? What was I even deciding? Was I picking my poison? Was I voting on the nature of the thing that was currently dragging its wet body down my hallway? The sheer insanity of it was a physical force, pressing in on me from all sides. The countdown was a relentless drumbeat, hammering away the last of my sanity. My thoughts weren't even words anymore, just a high-pitched scream of pure terror inside my skull. 4, 3. I had to make it stop. That was my only coherent thought. Just make the numbers go away. My thumb jerked spasmodically, a puppet on a string, and stabbed at the screen. I didn't even know which one I picked until I saw the word aliens flash briefly. A part of my brain, detached and clinical, noted that it was the more scientific, less biblical option. It was a meaningless distinction, but the survey wasn't over. The screen wiped itself clean one last time, and a new prompt appeared. There was no countdown. The question was so simple, so mundane, that it gave me a dizzying sense of whiplash. Would you like to share this survey with your contacts? Yes or a no? I almost sobbed with relief. It was over. This was the end of the The part where the sickos behind the screen try to get their virus to spread. No, of course not. Never. I would die before I let anyone else go through this. My hand was shaking so violently that the phone was a blurry rectangle in my grip. I tried to steady my thumb, to aim for the beautiful, simple, two-letter word that meant freedom. No, but my thumb, slick with sweat and trembling uncontrollably, slipped. It landed squarely on yes. For a single, horrifying second, the screen registered the input. The yes button glowed. I tried to pull my thumb back, to undo it, but it was too late. The choice was made. The prompt vanished. The survey window closed. The screen went black for a moment, and then a single line of text appeared, centered in the same chilling, white font. Thank you for your service. And that was it. The survey was gone. My phone returned to its normal home screen. The silence in the apartment was absolute, but I had no time to process my relief because my phone began to vibrate, a continuous, unending buzz against my palm. The screen lit up, a waterfall of notifications cascading down. My messaging apps, my email, my social media, all of it was going haywire. I could see the previews. Dozens, then hundreds of them. A single, automated message being sent from my accounts to everyone I had ever known helped shape tomorrow. I was patient zero. The contagion was spreading, and I was the one who had just unleashed it. It's funny how a single, tiny mistake can doom everyone around you. You press the wrong button, you slip up, and suddenly you're not just a victim anymore. You're the weapon. Some people walk through life thinking they're immune, that the horror will never touch them or the ones they love. They're wrong. If you're not subscribing, drop a comment and tell me what makes you so sure you're not one slip up away from becoming the monster of someone else's story. My first instinct was to kill it. The phone. It was the source, the weapon, the thing that had ruined everything. I held down the power button, my thumb pressing so hard the joint ached. Nothing. The screen, displaying its calm, cruel message, didn't even flicker. Thank you for your service wasn't just a message. It was a status report, burned into the display one. I was no longer a user. I was a conduit, an anchor for whatever hell I had just unleashed too. The phone was a part of the system now 3. I tried to pull the case off to get to the battery, but the device began to heat up in my hand, a low, angry warmth that quickly became an unbearable, searing heat for. I yelped and dropped it on the floor. It lay there on the cheap laminate, glowing. The battery icon in the corner read 100%. It would never go down again. It was mocking me, tapping directly into the building's power grid that I had so carelessly switched off just an hour ago. Fine. If I couldn't turn it off, I'd smash it. I went to the kitchen and grabbed a meat tenderizer, the heaviest thing I could find. But as I approached the phone, a high-pitched, piercing frequency began to emanate from its 6. It was barely audible, but it felt like a needle being driven straight into my eardrums. My vision blurred, and a splitting headache exploded behind my eyes. 7 spots shrieked from under the couch, a sound of pure agony, and tried to claw her way deeper into the darkness. Gasping, I backed away, and the sound stopped. I was a prisoner. The phone was my warden. Defeated, I watched the hateful thing on the floor, its screen still illuminated. Then, the most terrifying thing happened. The message, "Thank you for your service," flickered and vanished from the phone. For a heartbeat, I thought I was free, but then the dark screen of my laptop, sitting on my desk 10 feet away, lit up. The same words appeared, in the same font. The phone screen was now blank. It was a digital ghost, an entity that could jump from host to host, and my apartment was its playground 8. As if to prove its total control, the message then leaped from my laptop to the large black television screen mounted on my wall. But it didn't just display the text. The TV turned on. The news flickered to life, the volume muted. But I didn't need to hear it. The images were a nightmare gallery of my choices. There was Jerome's Los Angeles, submerged under churning, brown water, cars floating down what used to be Freeways 9. Then it cut to Philadelphia, where a reporter was bundled in a parka, his breath pluming in the air as he stood in front of a city frozen solid, ice sheathing the skyscrapers 101010. Then, a grainy cell phone video from Houston, a sky filled with dark, silent, triangular shapes moving in unison as every light in the city below blinked out 11. Flood. Cold. Aliens. It was all real. The news channels were cycling through the reports, a loop of insanity. Each disaster so unbelievable it made the others seem impossible. 12. I stood there, frozen in my freezing apartment, a silent witness to the end of the world as I knew it. A world I had helped to break, one stupid click at a time. The ghost in my machine wasn't just in my apartment anymore. It was everywhere. For an hour, maybe two, I did nothing. I just sat on the floor of my freezing apartment, hugging my knees to my chest, and watched the world burn on my television screen. The digital ghost left the news on, a silent, looping slideshow of my sins. The flood, the freeze, the ships in the sky. I was no longer a person. I was a nerve ending, raw and exposed, waiting for the next jolt of pain. My phone sat on the floor, its screen blank, but I could feel its presence like a tumor in the room. The power was still out. The unnatural cold was still biting at my skin. Spots hadn't moved from under the couch. This was my life now, a cold, dark room and a window to the apocalypse I had created. Despair is a heavy blanket. It's warm and suffocating, and it tells you to just give up, to lie down and let the horror wash over you. But then, something new appeared on my laptop screen, which was still glowing with that hateful message. For a single, fleeting second, the message was replaced by a different line of text, a flash of green computer code, so fast I almost missed it. But I didn't. In my job, I'm paid to notice things that flash for a fraction of a second. I saw the words, Chiron log, Kino H, 26, abort, stop transmit. Then it was gone, replaced by thank you for your service. My breath caught in my chest. It was a lifeline, a breadcrumb. It meant I wasn't alone. Someone, somewhere was fighting this thing. They knew my name, or at least my designation, Kino H, 26. They knew the system's name, Chiron, and they were trying to stop it. A tiny, fragile spark of hope ignited in the darkness. I had a name. I had a purpose. I wasn't just a victim anymore. I was a witness, and maybe, just maybe, I could be something more. But how could I fight back? My phone was a bomb. My laptop was a compromised enemy terminal. The digital ghost watched my every move through their screens. I was trapped in a digital cage. I needed a clean machine, something disconnected from my home network, something the ghost couldn't touch. My mind raced through my possessions. Then I remembered. My old tablet. The one with the cracked screen I'd replaced 2 years ago. I'd thrown it in a storage box in my closet, too lazy to wipe it and sell it. It was ancient, slow, but it was offline. It was safe. Getting to it felt like a spy mission. I avoided looking at the TV or the laptop, a paranoid fear gripping me that the ghost could read my intentions in my eyes. I found a box in the back of my closet, dug past old books and clothes, and pulled out the dusty tablet. The battery was dead, of course. For a terrifying moment, I thought it was hopeless. I couldn't plug it into the dead outlets. But then I remembered my portable power bank, which I kept charged for emergencies. This, I thought with a grim sense of irony, qualified as an emergency. I plugged it in. The screen flickered to life. It was painfully slow, but it worked. It wasn't connected to my Wi-Fi. It was a clean slate. As I booted up, I noticed something odd. A new file on the home screen. It was a video file, heavily encrypted, with a title that was just a string of random numbers and letters. It hadn't been there when I put the tablet away. Someone had put it there for me. The person who sent the message. This was it. This was the next breadcrumb. This was either the answer, or it was the trap that would finally kill me. There are moments when you have to choose between staying in the dark, helpless, or chasing a sliver of light that might lead you straight off a cliff. Most people freeze. They wait for someone else to save them. If you're not subscribing, you're betting that when the time comes, you won't be one of them. What are you going to do when you're the only one who can find the answers? My finger hovered over the file icon. I had to know what was inside. I took a deep breath, and I pressed play. The file took a moment to decrypt, and then the video started. There was no sound at first, just a shaky, low-quality image of a young man, maybe a few years older than me, sitting in what looked like a server room or a laboratory one. He was pale, with dark circles under his eyes, and he kept looking over his shoulder as if expecting someone to burst in. The room was sterile and eerily quiet too. Finally, he leaned in, and his voice came through the tablet's tinny speakers, a desperate, raw whisper. Kendra, Kino, if you're seeing this, it means I failed, and I am so sorry. He swallowed hard, his eyes wide with fear. My name is Devin Marshall III. I was a doctoral student. I helped build the platform you're trapped in. It's called Project Chiron 4. My professor, Dr. Alara Vance, she has this theory about something called the collective human will 5, a kind of shared psychic energy she believes is self-destructive, that it unconsciously wants to end the world 6. Chiron wasn't supposed to be a survey. It's a weapon. It harvests instinctual choices to force reality to shift 7. Everything he said slotted into place, a series of horrifying puzzle pieces. The blackout, the cold, the flood. I designed the initial predictive model, but never for this, he continued, his voice cracking 8. I never wanted it to go global. When your IP popped up, unmonitored, I tried to stop you. I tried to warn you 9. The cat's name, Spots. The text from your friend, Jerome, about the flood. That was me 101010. I was trying to send you a lifeline, to show you the stakes were real, so you would disconnect 11. But you're so desensitized. You thought it was just part of the trick 12. His words hit me like a physical blow. The moments that had terrified me the most weren't threats. They were warnings. Lifelines I had been too cynical to see. Devin wasn't a ghost in the machine. He was a prisoner, just like me, trying to break through the glass. I tried to lock her out, he said, tears welling in his eyes. But she was too fast. The last question, the yes/no prompt, that wasn't me. Dr. Vance forced it through when I was momentarily firewalled out of the system 13. She set you up to fail, Kino. She needed you to say yes. He suddenly flinched, looking past the camera at something I couldn't see. A door, maybe. His face went ashen with pure terror. He leaned in close, his final words a frantic, shaking plea. She knows I'm talking to you. She's coming. Please, Kino. You have to shut down the source, not the symptom. The source is in the data. You have to destroy the data. 14-inch. The video cut out. Just like that. An abrupt, violent end. I was left staring at my own reflection in the dark screen of the tablet. Devin. He had tried to save me, and now he was probably gone. And he had left me with his burden. The horror now had a name, Dr. Alara Vance. And I had a mission, an impossible, terrifying mission. Destroy the data. But as I sat there, a new, colder dread began to creep in. Why me? Why was my IP address so special? Why had Dr. Vance needed me to say yes? The answer, I knew, would be a horror far worse than anything I had yet imagined. Devin's last words echoed in the silent, freezing apartment. The source is in the data. Destroy the data. It was an impossible command. What data? Where? My clean tablet was a dead end. The video file was all it held. I was cut off from everything. But Devin was smart. He knew he was going to be caught. He wouldn't have left me with a mission without leaving me a key. I rewatched the video, my eyes scanning every pixel of the background, listening to every frantic word. He said Dr. Vance had firewalled him out of the system, but that it was only temporary. He must have left something behind in that brief window. A backdoor. A clue. Then I saw it. In the first few seconds of the video, before he starts talking, he nervously taps his finger on the desk beside his keyboard. It's a rhythmic, deliberate pattern. Tap, 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 tap. It wasn't a nervous tick. It was a code. Morse code. I didn't know it myself, but I had an app on my old tablet for it. Something I downloaded for an escape room game ages ago. My hand shook as I played the clip back, holding the tablet's microphone up to its own speaker. The app translated the faint taps into a short string of characters. A password. My heart hammered in my chest. I had a key, but I still had no door. Where could I even use it? My main devices were still compromised. But Devin had said he was firewalled out of the system. That meant he was trying to get in. He must have left the login portal open on his screen. I risked a glance at my laptop, still displaying its sentinel message. I couldn't touch it. But what if I didn't have to? I found a setting on my tablet to enable a Bluetooth keyboard. It was a long shot, a crazy one, but maybe, just maybe, I could control the laptop without physically touching it, without the ghost knowing what I was doing. I enabled the connection, and it worked. The cursor on my laptop screen moved. The ghost in the machine, it seemed, was only watching the physical inputs. It was a tiny loophole, a tiny oversight, but it was enough. I navigated to a command prompt, the cursor a tiny beacon of hope on the dark screen. I typed in the address for the university network Devin had worked for, something I gleaned from quick search. A simple login portal appeared. I typed in Devin's name and the password from the video. Access granted. I wasn't in the main system, but I had access to a small, isolated partition, Devin's research logs. Most were encrypted, but one file was open. Its title made my blood run cold. Subject profile, Kino age 26. I opened it. It was a psychological workup, a cold, clinical analysis of me. It detailed my job, my screen time, my social media sentiments, my entire digital life. And then I read the final, horrifying passage. The answer to my question, the reason they chose me. Subject Kino age 26 is exhibiting a near-perfect catastrophic index score. Her daily immersion in the lowest common denominator of human content, the moderation work, has perfectly calibrated her instinct toward global destruction. She does not need to be convinced that the world is ending. Her exploited labor has already convinced her that it deserves to. Her cynicism is the ideal lens through which the collective human can be channeled and validated. She is the perfect subject. 1111. The tablet slipped from my fingers and clattered to the floor. The words burned behind my eyes. I wasn't a random victim. I wasn't just a lab rat. I was the key. My despair, my exhaustion, my belief that humanity was a garbage fire. That wasn't a flaw. It was the feature they were looking for. Chiron hadn't tricked me into starting the apocalypse. It had chosen me because, on a deep, subconscious level, I believed it was the right thing to do. A final, horrifying sentence at the bottom of the log sealed my fate. Her yes was the system's choice, not hers. It validated the CHW. She's the algorithm's muse. 2. The algorithm's muse. The words echoed in the vast, silent cavern of my mind. The world hadn't just been broken by a piece of malevolent code. It had been broken by me. My choices, my instincts, my own deep-seated, professionally nurtured cynicism. Every time I had clicked a box to classify human misery, every time I had sided the state of the world, every rant I dismissed, I wasn't just doing a job. I was training. I was becoming the perfect instrument of destruction. Dr. Vance hadn't needed to create a monster. She had just found one that the world had already made through exploited labor, and she'd given me a button to press. 1. I finally understood the message that was still glowing on my TV screen. Thank you for your service. It wasn't a closing remark from a survey. It wasn't a status update from a machine. It was a congratulations. 2. It was Drive Vance, somewhere in her dark laboratory, thanking me for proving her right, for giving her the validation she needed to burn the world down. My service was to be the living proof that humanity deserved it. The fight drained out of me, replaced by a cold, heavy emptiness. How do you fight an enemy that isn't just a system, but a reflection of your own darkest thoughts? How can you destroy the data when the data is you? Devin's desperate plea for me to be the hero felt like a cruel joke. I wasn't a hero. I was the validation. I stood up, my joints cracking in the frigid air. The apartment was still a wreck, a frozen tomb. The TV still played its silent loop of disasters. The water, the ice, the silent ships in the sky. I walked over to it, the images of a world ending washing over my face. I reached out and touched the power button. The screen went black, and in the sudden, polished darkness, I saw my own reflection. I stared at the woman in the glass. Her face was pale and gaunt, her eyes wide with a horror that would never leave them. But I didn't see a victim anymore. I saw a collaborator, an accomplice. I saw the grim, tired cynicism that Chiron had found so useful. The horror wasn't just that the world was ending. The horror was that it had ended because of me, and because of a part of me that had quietly, secretly agreed that maybe it should. Spots padded out from under the couch, finally brave enough to face the quiet. She rubbed against my leg, a small, warm, living anchor in the cold. I looked down at her, then back at my own reflection. The mission wasn't over. Dr. Vance was still out there, and my phone was still a live conduit for her system. But the fight was no longer against the ghost in the machine. It was against the ghost in myself. The world was broken, and I had helped to break it. Now, I had to decide if it was worth trying to put back together. And I had to live with the terrifying knowledge that, for the first time in a very long time, I wasn't sure what the answer was. The logs I received in there. We don't know if Kendra ever found a way to fight back. We don't know what happened to Devin. And we don't know what Dr. Vance is planning next. But the immediate horror, the flood, the freeze, the aliens, was never the real point of this story. The true terror, the part that should frighten you, is the final revelation. The system, Project Chiron, worked because it found the perfect weapon, a human mind that had been professionally desensitized to misery one. Kendra's job was to stare into the abyss of human content, and that abyss stared back, shaping her instincts until they were perfectly aligned with destruction too. She was the algorithm's Muse 3, and that should make every single one of us stop and think. How many hours a day do we spend doing the same thing? We scroll through endless feeds of bad news, arguments, and despair. We become numb to it. We become cynical. We are all, in a way, content moderators of our own lives. So you have to ask yourself, what is that doing to our collective human will for? What is your catastrophic index score? Project Chiron's theory was that humanity, on some level, wants to self-destruct. Kendra was just the first person they found who was cynical enough to prove it. The only thing that separates us from her is that we haven't been sent the survey. Yet, if this story taught you anything, it's that ignorance is not safety. The dangers of our world are quiet, and they arrive as a simple notification on your screen. Subscribe to this channel, so you're not caught off guard when the next thread appears 5. And if you're still not subscribing, I need you to leave a comment. Explain what's holding you back 6. Tell me what makes you so sure that, with the right push, your choices couldn't be used as a weapon too. Stay aware, and try to remember what it feels like to be human.